Good evening, everyone. I call the meeting to order for the November 30th regular City Council meeting. Madam Clerk.
The record will reflect that all members of council are present.
Mr. Harper, is there a closed session report?
Yes, there's a brief closed session report this evening in regards to agenda item number 4A, which is the existing litigation entitled In Re National Prescription Opiate Litigation. A motion was made by Councilmember Dixon and seconded by Mayor Avery to authorize the city manager to participate in the nationwide settlement related to lawsuits stemming from the opioid crisis. The city is expected to receive approximately $3 million from the settlement over 18 years if the settlement is finalized. A certain number of entities need to participate in order for the settlement to be finalized. All council members voted in favor of the motion to settle this matter, participate in that settlement, except for Councilmember O'Neill, who had recused himself.
Thank you. So now it's time for the invocation by Councilmember Dixon, followed by Councilmember Blom, who will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you, Mayor. Let us pray. We give thanks tonight for the many blessings in our community, especially for those whose selfless acts and kindness make us better people. As we enter into the holiday season of hope and light, may we speak words of harmony, words of kindness, and words of inspiration. Fill our hearts this evening with gratitude for our civic life and service to our beloved city of Newport Beach. Amen.
Please join me in the pledge. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk.
The City Council of Newport Beach welcomes and encourages community participation. Public comments are generally limited to 3 minutes per person to allow everyone to speak. Written comments are encouraged as well. The City Council has a discretion to extend or shorten the time limit on agenda or non-agenda items.
Thank you. Now is the time for council announcements on oral reports from council members on committee activities. Mr. Blom.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, I'm gonna skirt my regular exciting adventures that I've had over the week, and I'm gonna dive right into the excitement of a fine Barolo on the dais. So as the world has discovered, and it was discovered up here, sometimes after dinner I do enjoy a glass of wine, and I did so at a council meeting before. I've said oftentimes I'm not a politician, and I will say that again. I am my own person. I vote my own heart, and I do so based on what I think is best and right for the city. In doing that, I think that I am also in a very different position of a lot of people, that I'm from a different fabric and from a different cloth. And I know, based on the rhetoric that politics has produced, that is not the cloth I'm from. There is a very angry politics out there, and I don't want to be part of that ever. I want to be up here to support everyone that wants to be positive and supportive. I fully recognize how that was not what we want to be doing up here, as I've heard it from many people from different accords. And from this point forward, I think all you'll ever see up here is some iced tea, maybe a beautiful cappuccino or a glass of water from me, as it's no longer in the decorum of what the public would like. So I want to thank everyone for that understanding. I want to thank everyone for the rhetoric that builds around these things. I'm not here to ever divide. It's never been my intention. I don't like to stand up here and get angry. I always like to stay positive and be happy, and it has always been my way, through the campaign and through now. And so I thank all of you that came out. I do hope you guys are enjoying that out there in the, please. I do appreciate a fine Barolo more than most people in this world. So as long as you enjoy as well, that all works fine for me, okay? I'm up here to make decisions that I believe are right and out of my heart, and that's what I'm gonna continue to do. There's lots of processes to get rid of me. I'd be happy to give you any of the documentation to do so, and you can go on that process yourself. But other than that, I thank you all for coming and always attending these meetings. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Brenner.
attended, that threw me off here. Hold on just a second. I don't have anything very exciting to say, Noah. Okay, let's see. So I had a CDMRA meeting. Noah and Will and I always go to the CDMRA meetings, and I want to emphasize again, those meetings are open to the public for anybody that wants to attend, even if you're not a $20 a year member. It's the third Thursday of each month at the Oasis Senior Center, 7:30 in the morning. You get a chance to hear reports from 3 of your council members, and it's really time well spent because you really find out what's going on. I also had my mosquito and vector control trustee meeting this month, which it wasn't too exciting because we're hopefully getting to the end of mosquito season. And the other thing that I did that was really interesting was the mayor of Long Beach, Robert Garcia, invited some electeds and other people to tour the Long Beach Harbor. And I invited Paul Blank, our harbor master, with his boss, with Grace's permission, to accompany me up there. And we spent the morning on a boat in Long Beach Harbor with Mayor Garcia and the executive director, Mario Cordero, talking about the situation with the cargo ships, how quickly they could get them unloaded, what the process was for making it faster, and they're automizing everything so that, and they've got a plan for reemploying the union workers who are displaced through all this automation, and it was really fascinating, and they really are making they're making progress. But he said there were 450,000 containers still out there. So but they're looking at how they can revise the system so that they have a reservation and a ship doesn't leave their home port with their cargo until they have a date that they're supposed to be unloaded in Long Beach. So they really are making some big strides, but we've never had cargo ships like this in our line of sight before, and they're working really hard on it. That was interesting. That's it for me.
Thank you. Councilmember O'Neill?
Yeah, thank you. I was able to attend the Citizen of the Year Awards this year. They had both of them because last year they weren't able to have one of them. And then I was able to host a Girl Scout troop in these chambers, and then also the Seashore Academy as well, who were learning about civics and government. I've got a TCA workshop coming up where it's all day on one day and then half day on the other. I'm not sure why we needed it to be so long. It really just needs to be pay down the debt faster. But that's actually on that front, I do want to make a quick note because Newport Beach sits on the San Joaquin board. The San Joaquin board, when you think of the transportation corridor agencies, there are 2 of them. There's the Foothill Eastern, and then there's the San Joaquin. San Joaquin is primarily the debt repayment agency for the 73. And recently, 2 things happened that are actually really good to know. And I say this as the vice chair of the entire TCA for the finance committee there. We just went out for bond refinancing, and the expectation is that it's going to save over $100 million in debt service payments because of the low interest environment we're in. And in part, it's due to actually Standard & Poor upgrading the bonds themselves to an A and the junior to an A-. That's never happened in the history of TCA. It's a really, really big deal. And in part, it's due to the fact that when I joined, they didn't have a debt management policy, despite the fact that both agencies exist almost entirely to pay down debt. And so with the help of our former finance director, we wrote one. For the TCA, and was adopted by both boards, and now we've got an upgrade on our bond rating at TCA. So Newport Beach doing great things on the regional level as well. And then last but not least, on December 13th at 6 p.m., we'll be having another redistricting committee meeting. We had 3 people come to the last one. Hopefully we can get a little more participation on the next. Oh, and if you'd like to try to your hand at drafting your own redistricting maps here in the city of Newport Beach. We have a dedicated website. If you just go to newportbeachca.gov, it's part of the splash page. Thanks.
Thank you. Councilmember Dixon.
Thank you, Mayor. Apropos to Councilmember Blom's good statement a few moments ago, I think part of our issue in the city is that we probably need to clarify and define appropriate council decorum so people understand what it is, because it has not been clarified. So I would like to propose an A1 item to amend our city council policy and our municipal code to include specific terms for the definition of council member decorum, so we don't leave it anyone guessing as to what that is, and the use of alcohol in our public buildings. So I'd like to A1 that item. And as far as my activities, there hasn't been many because of the Thanksgiving holiday, but the Citizen of the Year, which Mr. O'Neill just mentioned, was a wonderful event recognizing two of our well-involved, intensely involved citizens, Walt Howell and Joe Stapleton. So it was a fun evening for the Newport Beach Chamber. So I thank them for once again coming back and hosting that event. And thank you, Chamber, and thank you, Tom Johnson. He did a great job emceeing. And that's it. Thanks.
Thank you. Councilmember Duffield.
Well, I don't have much going on this last 2 weeks, but I would like to take a quick shout out to my alma mater and the school I played football with. They won our championship. It was amazing. Nobody thought that would happen, but they pulled it off. And so it's a great thing, a good comeback. And last time they did it was 2005, and I brag a minute, my son was on that team. So anyway. Good job, you guys. That's huge for our little surfer football guys.
Mayor Pro Tem Muldoon.
Thank you. I hope everyone had a great Thanksgiving. I learned something really cool about my family. This guy I'm related to named William Hopkins, his brother Stephen Hopkins was on the Mayflower. He signed the Mayflower Compact, and I didn't know this till I did some research on it. And he was cited by local authorities for selling alcohol and playing shuffleboard on Sundays. So I hope that Diane will consider adding a no shuffleboard resolution to our rules going forward. But I appreciate, Noah, your remarks, and I respect that you are a man who wants to be true to your rebellious nature and yet is willing to listen to the residents when they cite their concerns. On a much more fun note, we are having, have the slide, please. An Operation Christmas toy drive. Now, staff put this on my desk. I thought it was for me. I was really excited. It's not for me. Please bring toys, including new toys, DVDs, and sports equipment, anytime between now and 12 p.m. on December 22nd to any public facility in the city. Drop-off locations include the Civic Center here, Oasis Senior Center, Newport Coast Community Center, Marina Park, Newport Beach Libraries, all of them, Newport Beach Fire Stations, and the Police Department. Hope you consider being generous this Christmas. Thanks so much.
Thank you. And I also, along with Julie, attended the Citizen of the Year Awards that were really excellent at the Balboa Bay Resort, put on by the Chamber of Commerce, and Steve Rosansky has obviously just organized it to a T. So it was a record turnout, hundreds of people, and really great evening. And I also attended the Orange County Sanitation District Board meeting virtually, still meeting virtually with that group. And I've got some good news for our local businesses somewhere. I think there might be a slide. There we go. So that giant area, the shaded area, has been the fishing exclusion zone for quite some time, since the oil spill. And so as of noon today, our local fisheries have reopened, and so that all goes away. And 650 square miles of marine water and 45 miles of offshore line have been closed to fishing since early October. So based on the testing conducted over the past several weeks, the state has determined that no potential health hazards remain from consumption of seafood and shellfish. And this means that fishing and collecting of shellfish can resume off non-protected coastal waters and piers. So what it really means, it's obviously great for all the folks. We have a lot of passionate sport fishermen in our harbor. And we also have some businesses that depend on that activity as well. So it's great to have these waters opened up for both types of fishing. And Then there's a drought survey. It's coming, and I know we're anxious to get feedback. So there's sort of a deadline. The city's been collecting public input on the drought and our community response, and the survey is going to close December 3rd. So that's this Friday. So if you haven't done so already, I encourage you to take the survey at watersmartnewport.org. And your feedback will help shape the city's response to the drought and how we work together to conserve water. And so you're going to be hearing a lot more of this, I think, in the near term, and obviously it's going to be a part of our life for a while going forward. And so we're all going to have to do more to conserve water. And we need the feedback from folks on how to do this equitably between businesses, residents. And Mr. Duffield beat me to it, but that's okay. I'm not the, I did graduate from Harbor High. I just got there a little late. And, but I would like to congratulate the Harbor High football team on winning the CIF Southern Division 6 championship in an exciting 42-35 victory over Temecula Valley on Saturday night. This was the first section championship won by the Sailors since 2005, the year your son played on the team, and their fourth overall. The last time Newport Harbor High made it to the division championship in football was 2013. So we wish them all the best as they face San Bernardino Aquinas this Friday in the CIF State Southern California Regional Division 3 AA championship game, 3 AA championship game. That's exciting stuff. Let's keep them in our thoughts and prayers. Need all the help they can get, you know. All right, Madam Clerk.
This is the time in which council members may pull items from the consent calendar for discussion. Those are items 1 through 23. Public comments are also invited on consent calendar items. Speakers must limit comments to 3 minutes. Before speaking, please state your name for the record. If any item is removed from the consent calendar by a council member, members of the public are invited to speak on each item for up to 3 minutes per item. All matters listed under consent calendar are considered to be routine and will all be enacted by one motion, the form listed below. Council members have received detailed staff reports on each of the items recommending an action. There will be no separate discussion of these items prior to the time the City Council votes on the motion unless members of the City Council request specific items to be discussed and are removed from the consent calendar for separate action.
Thank you. Councilmember Brenner, do you have any items to pull from the consent calendar or conflicts to announce related to items 1 through 23?
I have no conflicts and nothing to pull, but I would like to request that our Public Works Department give us a short report on item 5 and item 16, and that perhaps Aaron or Simone give us a report on 7 and 9 about the constitutional amendment.
Thank you. Councilmember Dixon?
I have none.
Councilmember Blom?
Thank you, Mayor. I have a recusal on number 11 due to real property interests.
Thank you. Councilmember Duffield?
I have none.
Mayor Pro Tem Muldoon?
Yes, couple. I have a no vote on item 19 by myself and recuse on item 14 due to potential business conflict.
Thank you.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, you skipped over me.
Sorry.
I'll show a conflict on item 4 due to membership in Pacific Club, and 19 due to appearance of bias, only because 2 years ago, I think an attorney in my firm had represented someone in the vicinity, and I honestly don't know if they still do, but I'm just going to recuse off that.
Thank you. And I have none. Mayor Pro Tem?
Yeah, ready for the motion? Thank you. I move the balanced consent calendar items 1 through 23 with correction to the minutes, a no vote on item 19 by myself, recusal on item 11 by Councilmember Blom, and recusal on item number 4 and 19 by Councilmember O'Neill, and recusal by myself on item 14 due to potential conflict of interest by myself.
All right. So, Ms. Brenner, would you like to hear those?
Yes, I'd like to ask someone from Dave Wedd's department, Micah, to come. I think any opportunity to talk to the public about our recycling and trash changes we need to take advantage of. So if you could just tell us a little bit about this.
Sure, absolutely. Thank you, Councilmember Brenner. This item here tonight is the second reading of an ordinance change that's required by SB 1383, which is the organic recycling state mandate that's coming into effect January 1st of 2022. So this ordinance change here tonight is a step in the direction of helping us to be in compliance as of that date to meet CalRecycle's mandate. And with that is going to come forward an amended contract on January 11th before the council. And that amended contract will include many changes to our refuse program, expanded recycling with our current recycling program, and also the addition of organics recycling to that, which will give us a 3-cart system. We'll also be looking at some route changes to help gain efficiencies in that program. Containerization, putting everything in the cart and into the correct cart. There'll be limits on the number of carts. There'll also be bulky item collection changes as well, so there'll be a lot more to come on that on January 11th, but this is certainly a step in the right direction to get us on board with that program.
Thank you, Micah. We've been talking a lot about this, but I don't think we can emphasize enough times the changes that we're going to be looking forward to. So that would be great. Thank you.
Thank you.
The other one for Public Works was the Pacific Coast Highway resurfacing or rehabilitation and Marguerite, and I don't have to be recused on this, Aaron said, but I just want people to know what we're going to be looking forward to and what kind of inconveniences we might have to expect.
Yes. Jim Houlihan, Deputy Public Works Director and City Engineer. So we are proposing, or we're awarding today, the contract for the resurfacing from of Coast Highway from MacArthur to Newport Coast Drive and Marguerite from 5th Street to Coast Highway. With that project, we'll be doing some deep removals within the pavement where there's bad areas. We'll be doing a lot of concrete work on the curbs and the sidewalks, handicap ramps, those type of things, driveways. And as far as inconvenience, most of the work's going to be done during the day. We'll be keeping one lane open in each direction. But when we get ready to pave, grind and pave that street, which will take about 2 weeks in total, it'll be done in, on Coast Highway, it'll be done in 4 sections. And each section will be done, grind, and then repaved, grind, repaved, as we work our way toward Newport Coast. The last section's the longest, from Poppy to Newport Coast. The other 3 are smaller sections through the commercial area. So each one of those, all 4 of those will be done at night. I believe we said 8 or 9 o'clock to 6 a.m. That's the time frame that work will be done. Marguerite will be done during the day. All work on Marguerite will be done during the day. So.
And are we expecting some noise disturbance at night because of that work?
So there, just like any other construction work out on the street, there will be, a lot of the people who live in that area, specifically along from Poppy over, where we'll be adjacent. I mean, they hear all kinds of things on that road today, but yeah, it'll be, we're trying to minimize it. If we do it during the day, it'll be chaos. And we've already seen that with some smaller work we've done on some water lines where we had to replace some valves. This would be a much bigger impact. And we feel that it's like pulling a Band-Aid. We need to get this done. And it's the best opportunity to get this work done.
Jim, on the nature of noise reduction, is there anything we're going to be doing that might help the future?
So the pavement, what we're doing is we're putting in rubberized asphalt. So it's going to be a quieter asphalt than what we have today. That pavement out there has been there for long time. And it's not rubberized. So we're going to have a much quieter pavement when we're all completed. The rest of Caltrans will be working on the other end of town, and they'll be doing the same thing. But this is the portion that we're responsible for.
You may recall that we used rubberized pavement on MacArthur, and it dropped the decibels about 5. It's a combination of recycled tires put into the asphalt that has a little open graded and reduces the decibels of the roadway. So that should help the residents in the long term.
So it's short-term pain for some long-term gain, though.
That's right.
And one more point, Joy, you're going to have one lane open at all times when you're working for the most part.
During the day.
During
At
the
night, there'll be one side of the road closed during that work. So as we grind, and then we pave, and then going in the other direction. So there's a lot of thought into the traffic control, in the detouring, but that'll be nighttime detouring.
So will you have two-way traffic on one side of the medium at night, or how do
We
you
wouldn't do that.
handle two-way traffic
We'd
then?
we'd use Newport Coast Drive.
Oh, we
And
divert
we'd
them.
use, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
That
So
would be
they're
great.
going to be, we're trying to minimize that area that we'd
Okay.
be using.
Ask a quick question. When does this happen?
The work starts in January, and it's an 80-day contract. So it would be near the end of that term, which is about 4 months. So we're looking at May, that time frame. Early May, maybe April.
Thank you.
Okay.
The other ones that I wanted Simone to report on was on numbers.
But Joy, you're not pulling these, right?
No.
You're just,
No, we just
Okay.
wanted Simone to give a report on Senate Bill 9, the resolution that we passed, and 7.
Hi, good evening. So this is the resolution with regards to the constitutional amendment. And this amendment, what it does, it brings back all that local control back to the local agencies. So earlier at the study session, we talked about SB 9 and SB 10, where the state has allowed or mandated that people can build more housing units. And that the cities really don't have a lot of control anymore on their local zoning. It wiped out our R1 zoning. That's what SB 9 did. This constitutional amendment, what it's going to do is, if it passes, it's going to override all those state bills, bring back that local control to cities like Newport Beach, which we are a charter city. And that's the whole point of being a charter city, that you can control your own destiny. You can control your own zoning. And that was the point of this constitutional amendment. And the resolution today is to support this constitutional amendment as we go forward, and it'll be on the future ballot for the state.
And I just wanted to let people know that there are a lot of people around town that are collecting signatures on the petition to try to get this on the ballot.
It's not appropriate to talk
Okay.
about that piece of it. Thanks.
That's separate.
okay, thank you. So Mayor Pro Tem made a motion. Do we have a second? Thank you. So we'll now have public comments on the consent calendar items 1 through 23.
Mayor Avery, members of the council, my name is Jim Mosier. Regarding item 8, that is the resolution initiating the zoning code amendments related to parking regulations. And as I said at the study session, if what you are asking the staff to do is only to revise commercial parking regulations, I would suggest you direct the staff in this resolution to amend the title and section 1 to insert the word commercial, so it's clear to everyone that you are revising our commercial, not our parking regulations in general, which would affect residents. I also wanted to call attention to item number 20 and 21 on the consent calendar, which are drafts of tentative agreements between the city and the Newport Beach Police Association and the Firefighters Association as to their salary and benefits for the next 4 years, I believe it is. As I understand it, these are on the agenda theoretically for your discussion and review and possible amendment and for the public to look at. I believe they are one of the two of the largest components of the city budget. So it's normal, but it's a little disappointing that being on the agenda, there is going to be no public discussion of them. I would point out that both of these, unlike your agreements with other employee associations, involve a one-time bonus, which I think is a little questionable under the California Constitution. And the one with the police association, because the existing agreement ended on June 30th, it's actually retroactive, which is especially questionable under the California Constitution because cities paying for service are supposed to agree in advance to what the amount will be, not to, after the fact, change it. And it's especially problematic because the existing and the revised memorandum of understanding say that in that circumstance where it says that the provisions of the existing MOU shall continue after the date of expiration of this MOU in the event the parties are meeting and conferring. So it's, if the existing MOU conditions were supposed to continue, it's a little hard to see how you could justify going back and doing something different, and in fact giving a retroactive pay raise. So those are problems, I think, with that one, and I'm just disappointed that there's no public discussion of what went into creating these. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Susan Skinner, and I'm here tonight to discuss SB 9 and the statewide initiative that the council will be voting on to support shortly. You guys know this, but those who are listening, our governor signed SB 9 into law in September. SB 9 effectively eliminates single-family zoning in California. Instead, virtually any single-family lot can be subdivided into two and a duplex built on each new lot. In addition, a granny unit can be added to each lot for a total of 6 dwellings where one house stood before. This will now be allowed by right, meaning that neither the city nor the neighbors can do a darn thing about it. Every single-family neighborhood is at risk of this happening to them. So what can we do to stop this? There is a new statewide initiative collecting signatures in order to qualify for the November 2022 ballot that will prevent the state from dictating zoning decisions to cities and counties. This will unwind SB 9 and other recently passed laws that chip away at local control of development and restore full control of zoning laws to our cities. So guess what? I'm part of that effort and would encourage anyone watching to go to stopsb9oc.com and learn about this initiative and how they can help. So one more time, that website is stopsb9oc.com. Thank you. And anybody here who wants to sign, I have to keep.
Thank you. Any more comments on the consent calendar items? All right. Seeing none. So a motion in a second.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, one clarification.
Yes.
I meant to make this clarification. Oh, I'll wait.
Thank you. Good evening, City Council. My name is Jax Richards. I'm a Newport Beach lifeguard, local surfer, student, and environmental activist. The ocean is an important part of my life, and I have a huge passion to protect it. I'm here tonight to urge the council in supporting the resolution that would ban new offshore drilling in both federal and state waters off the California coast. It's time to pass this resolution, which both Huntington and Laguna have already done. It's time for Newport to start taking a bigger stand on these environmental issues, because each and every oil rig off our coast affects us all. The recent oil spill on October 2nd showed us just that, and we all know it could have been much worse. From beach closures, harmed marine life, disrupting our local economy, to exacerbating climate change, the effects of offshore drilling are clear. We need to accelerate the phase out of fossil fuels and continue to make the transition to clean energy so we can protect the things we love most. Our first step in doing that would be voting yes on this resolution tonight. Thank you for your time, and I look forward to seeing the council start taking a stronger stand in protecting our coast in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. O'Neill?
Yep. Simone, no need to get up, but on item 8, the clarification that Mr. Mosier's referencing, putting the word commercial in front of parking regulations on the title, does that give you any heartburn at all? Okay, then we won't. All right.
Great. All right. We have a motion and a second. Yep.
Prior to reading the vote, I'll read the ordinance titles for items 3, 4, and 5. Ordinance 2021-26, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Newport Beach amending Title 21 Local Coastal Program Implementation Plan of the Newport Beach Municipal Code and adopting Local Coastal Program Amendment LC 2019-1, correcting and clarifying provisions related to minimum lot size and dimension overlays and public hearing notice requirements. Ordinance 2021-24, approving an amendment to the Newport Place Planned Community PC 11 PD 2021-1 to change the land use designation from Restaurant Site 1 to General Commercial Site 8 for the property located at 4241 MacArthur Boulevard, and Ordinance 2021-25, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Newport Beach, amending Chapter 6.04, garbage refuge cuttings, Chapter 6.06, state-mandated municipal solid waste diversion programs, and Chapter 14.17, water efficient landscaping of the Newport Beach Municipal Code, necessary to implement Senate Bill 1383, short-lived Climate Pollutant Reduction Act of 2016, state mandates. Mayor Avery, if you could vote, please. The motion carries unanimously 7-0.
Thank you. And now we'll go to public comments on non-agenda items. So do we have anybody coming forward?
Good evening. If holding a glass with a bubbly drink in it at a city council meeting looks inappropriate, it is. My glass has sparkling cider in it. By his own admission, Mr. Blum's glass has contained alcohol. Drinking on the job is never acceptable, but Mr. Blum believed otherwise until he encountered a significant social media blowback. Think about this. He was voting on things that affected us all and may well have done so while inebriated. We saw this in the October 26th meeting, in which the council put the flawed elected mayor proposal on the ballot. Mr. Blum launched into a barely coherent monologue lasting 13 minutes to say what could have been said in 2 minutes. Most of us would have cringed the next morning at that performance, but my guess is that Mr. Blum didn't give it a second thought until he got called out. I never thought that I would need to say this, but the council really should explicitly prohibit drinking alcohol at council meetings. Thank you.
Hello, City Council. My name's Jennifer Irani. Some of you are familiar with me. I work in the education Newport Mesa Unified School District. My interest is in setting good examples for children. We don't drink on the job. We don't want children drinking on the job. And I think that most of you up there know that drinking on the job is not a good idea. I can't ask you right now, face to face, Mr. Blum, why you chose to do something that was not proper. I've served on boards, I've been in many places, and I know what's right and wrong. And your indifference to it is astounding to me. And the other council members that don't have a problem with it, that kind of think this is all okay, is a big problem here in this city. We've got some problems. We've got kids getting run over. We've got motorcycle accidents. We've got drug abuse. We've got some serious stuff going on. We cannot have people up here drinking, and you should know better. You should know better. I was going to let you off the hook, but you know what? No, this is something that can't be buried.
Next speaker, please.
Well, I don't think he really cares, but cheers, Noah. I kind of feel like your, whatever you want to call it, your explanation was rather condescending, tongue-in-cheek, and you really feel like you always feel that there's nothing you can do wrong. So there is a certain level of respect that you owe the voters, you owe your fellow city council members, and just respect, which you never show. So I wrote down a few things that just show your lack of respect. And first of all, you can't blame this on Jeff Herdman. He had nothing to do with it. He wasn't there. He doesn't plan on running. And we all got the memo that you got caught drinking on the dais, and he, unfortunately, sent a letter that wasn't so well written, but that's on him. None of the things I've ever said about you have been untrue, ever. Right from the beginning, when you had a bench warrant for your arrest for not paying your child support, and the judgments from your vendors for not paying your restaurant bills, all were undeniable facts of your character, just like drinking on the dais. And they continue to go on today, Noah. My friend's dog that lives in your apartment complex, your Akita that was off leash, ran at his dog and nearly killed him. He called you again and again and again. And don't shake your head, it's true. And you never had the courtesy to call him back. He had to get your apartment association involved, and you finally paid the bill. So it all goes back to your character and your arrogance. It's the same thing when you lost the Top Chef. I was rooting for you all the way because I think you're a very gifted chef. You should have stayed in that business and not made Newport Beach look like a low-life city. But you began acting like an entitled, I'm better than everybody else here. And the judges, they sent you home. More arrogance unfounded. My father taught both my brother and me at a very young age, respect is earned. It's not given. So can please, one of you people who work with him, Kevin, I respect you. Please teach this guy some manners and learn to show respect. Thank you.
No clapping, thank you. Next speaker, please. Non-agenda items.
Good evening, Mayor Avery and City Council. Well, first and foremost, I want to thank you and the council for all your work on behalf of the residents of Newport Beach. My name is Erin Berry, and I'm a local realtor, 18 years in Orange County, up and down the coast. I'm one of 200,000 realtors in the state of California, representing homeowners. In our efforts to be more constructive, a team of realtors has worked hard to create an effective organization called Smart Coast California. Right on the screen behind you. Now, with 90,000 stakeholders in place throughout the coastal communities, Smart Coast California is working. We're working for the collaborative stewardship of the coast, dedicated to sustainability, private property rights, and the environment. We truly are advocates for solutions to address sea level rise in our communities and all of the nuances throughout the state. As Californians, we are all in this together. We need to work together to find solutions as partners for all of California, both coastal and inland. Smart Coast California hopes to engage with you and your staff to work together on those solutions. As a director for Smart Coast, we want to thank you for all the work you're doing on the issues of sea level rise, and we look forward to our mutual endeavors. Now, I personally want to introduce to you our Smart Coast consultant, Don Schmitz of Schmitz & Associates. He has a presentation on our efforts and organizational policies. Thank you. Don?
Evening, council members. It's good to see you again. Don Schmitz, once again in the breach. This is a topic that is probably suited to a 30-minute presentation. We've got 3. But I did send you a letter on the 29th, along with a very comprehensive PowerPoint presentation. And I have already met with the city manager's office and the planning director's office on this. So yes, I'm here amongst our clients at Smart Coast California. I'm proud to be representing this organization that they've been building for the last couple of years. And now it's not about building so much as doing the actual work. This is our board of directors, and our new board will be elected, has been elected for 2022. And so let's cut to the chase. There's a juggernaut coming, It is something to deal with a very significant issue, which is, of course, sea level rise. And as you can see from the assessment that the city's already conducted here, the analysis that the Coastal Commission is wanting to be implemented is 6.7 feet of sea level rise by the end of this century. Now, I'm sure you've noticed that's a 0.5% or a 1 in 200 chance of that actually happening, but that's what they are requiring the cities and the counties up and down the state of California to incorporate into their land use planning. Now, this is some of the mapping that was done for Newport Beach, and this is just 4.9 feet. The maps at 6.7 show basically Lido Island, Balboa Island, the inside of the peninsula. Most of the harbor of Newport Beach is gone. It is completely underwater. Now, the Smart Coast Board has adopted 4 very important policies in regards to manage or treat, existing development, regulatory takings, and tiered response. I don't have time to go into all of those, but the one you need to be most concerned about in any sort of discussion right now is manage or treat. And manage or treat means if anybody proposes more than a 50% remodel of their home or a new home, they have to design it in such a fashion, taking into account said 6, almost 7 feet of sea level rise, and prove to you and prove to the Coastal Commission they will never need a shoreline protection device. And of course, you cannot accomplish that in many places. And this is not a theoretical concept. In fact, last week at the Coastal Commission hearing on 2 homes that were appealed to the Commission by the Commission itself up in Malibu, they required those homes to A, record a deed restriction that they would never have a seawall, and B, if the waves came in, they would have to tear down their house to reflect the new mean high tide line. Now, there are options. There are options that are being designed and have been analyzed for different places. For instance, to protect the bluffs to the south of us in Newport, there are such things as offshore reefs, which are very well done. There's also, it's not a foregone conclusion, raising the bulkheads, which protects the islands and the peninsula and many parts of the city is something which is actually dissuaded. However, we worked in Morro Bay, and Morro Bay did update their local coastal program and incorporated the ability to increase those. And lastly, and in closing, Santa Cruz County has a local coastal program pending right now where they are proposing a very another 30 seconds. Mayor, thank you, sir. A very unique, creative approach where a critical portion of the shoreline where they literally cannot retreat, they will work with the local neighborhoods, form GADs, Geologic Hazard Abatement Districts, and have a community seawall. This is the type of creative thinking that Smart Coast has been working with cities and counties up and down the state of California and liaisoning with the commission. I am personally meeting with the executive director and commissioners, and we look forward to working with Newport Beach in the future. I know you very well, this community, the people that elect you and the people on the council, and you have a proven track record of being very tough, creative, and fair, and again, I look forward to working with you on this. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next speaker, please. All right. So no further speaker on the non-agenda items. We'll go to the public hearings. Item 24 is a resolution number 2021-126, Central Library Lecture Hall Building, approval of the conceptual design and associated memorandum of understanding with the Newport Beach Public Library Foundation. And I will say that this has been up here before, just recently, and the council members have all been briefed, as well as the public that were here at the time. So I don't believe, unless council members wish it, that we need a staff report at this time. Okay.
Just a quick clarification. Yeah. So just a quick clarification on this. This is an issue actually raised by Councilmember Dixon. To the policy issue. So one of the interesting things that happens in our charter is that the Newport Beach Board of Library Trustees actually has, as their very first item, they have the power and duty to have charge of the administration of city libraries and make and enforce such bylaws, rules, and regulations as may be necessary. Therefore, this is an item Mr. Mosier flagged for me. This is the only body that gets to do something that City Council is not able to undo or change or modify. And so the policies that are enacted by the Board of Library Trustees is not one that the City Council has the authority to change. So they recently adopted a policy that is going to address the use of a library lecture hall when it's built. Councilmember Dixon made the good point of saying that in the first priority, the city's library is referenced, but the city itself is not. And so I've spoken to Paul Watkins, who is the chair of the Board of Library Trustees this morning, who's assured me that at their next meeting in this month, they're going to be agendizing an amendment to include the city as a first use priority as well. So did want to highlight that and appreciate the point being raised. Thanks.
Thank you. Do we have any other council comments? All right. Seeing none, we'll hear from the public. Is there anyone wish to speak on this item?
Mayor Avery, members of the council, my name is Jim Mosier. I just wanted to call your attention to recital M, which is on page 24-22 of the staff report. Confirm that that's actually what you want to adopt tonight. This is saying that through this agreement, the parties wish to memorialize their intention to equally share in the costs of the project, subject to other terms and conditions set forth below. I don't totally understand the impact of the other terms and conditions, but I thought it was distinctly not the council's intention from your previous decision or discussion to commit to sharing the cost equally, depending on what the cost turns out to be. I thought the agreement was to share equally up to $13 million, but not beyond that. So are you sure that this says what you want it to say? It may, I'm not sure, because I don't quite understand what it says, but it seems to be a commitment to share equally whatever the cost is. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other public comment on this item?
Jennifer again. I just want to support the young man who spoke about the ocean, and I hope you'll support that.
Yeah, I don't know.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, any further comments on this? And I'll just say that obviously the relationship between the city and the Newport Beach Public Library Foundation is strong, and Mr. O'Neill led on this negotiation and with them, and it was just very professional all the way through, and I think everybody understands the goodness of this project and what it'll bring to the city and certainly the Civic Center and to patrons of the library and to folks who will really enjoy the opportunity to hear some great lectures and attend various events in the new library lecture hall. So unless there's additional comments, Ms. Dixon?
Thank you, Mayor. This is momentous. I'm looking out at Jill Johnson Tucker. She has been the spear carrier for this project since its inception. Last time I spoke, I said it was 6 or 7 years. She said it may be longer. It's been a lifetime. But I just want to commend the committee that Jill led, presided over, and staff for bringing us to this point and the successful negotiation of the MOU that memorializes that this project that will be an honor for the city and the residents of Newport Beach to have as their own library lecture hall will be a public-private partnership, and the total costs, hopefully not to exceed the $13 million we've just discussed. And it is something that I share immense pride for the committee and their fine work and the architect. And now with the action tonight, the architect can finalize the plans. The fundraising can begin. The bell can ring now that there is a real project, has been approved by this body, and they're on their way. And I just want to congratulate staff, the committee, the community for supporting our central library. The Board of Trustees, the foundation have come together in total agreement for this fabulous new facility that will make the city proud. So thank you, Jill and Larry, for your help too. And it takes a village to do what we're doing and what you're doing. And thank you. I'm very grateful. Thank you.
All right, any additional council comments or questions on this item? Okay, we'll close the public hearing, seeing no other comments in the audience. Do we have a motion and a second?
I'll move.
Okay, I'll second.
Councilmember Duff, thank you. With Mayor Pro Tem Muldoon voting no, the motion carries 6-1.
Thank you. Okay, we're moving on to item 25, an ordinance number 2021-27, a code amendment related to tattoo establishments. So, do we have a report on this? We do.
We do. Thank you, Mayor Avery. We are changing our code to be compliant with more of the case law regarding tattoo establishments. Matt Schneider is the principal planner there. He has a brief presentation. I think it's important to understand where tattoo establishments can be located in the city. So I'll hand it off to Matt. Thanks.
Thank you, Simone. Good evening, Mayor Avery, council members. I'll jump right in just by way of some brief background. A lot of this ordinance was informed by several legal decisions related to the zoning of tattoo establishments that have happened in recent years. The big takeaway is that tattooing is considered protected speech under the First Amendment of the United States Constitution. And that limits the city's ability to use discretion when applying regulations. And what it really does is sets up a framework where we need to focus on reasonable time, place, and manner restrictions. And so the ordinance amendment updates our current process, which is through a conditional use permit, to establish development standards that would be applied in a ministerial permit process. First, tattooing is not a defined use in the zoning code, and so this ordinance will define its use. Two, it establishes the permitted zones where it would be allowed. It'll be the general commercial, office general, and office regional zoning districts, and again, as I indicated, permitted with a ministerial use permit. There's really two subsets of development standards. We have location requirements and operation standards. So in terms of location requirements, we researched a number of other jurisdictions' ordinances. We looked at the secondary impacts, potentials from tattoo establishments, and they serve to set up what I describe as buffers. So the first one is 1,000 feet from another tattoo establishment itself. The second would require that tattoo establishments be 500 feet from any primary school, playground, or park. And the last one would be 500 feet from the boundary of any residential structure. In terms of operating standards, it would establish hours of operations from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. by appointment only. It would require a security camera system, have to be screened from public view, no outdoor seating or waiting area, alcohol and marijuana use would be prohibited. Smoking within 20 feet of the premises would be prohibited. Noise signs and parking have to comply with all city standards, and of course, all state, county, and health regulations. So this map reflects the current zones in the city where tattoo establishments are permitted. The red being the commercial zones where it's permitted, the orange amber color, the office, and there are 5 yellow circles, and those represent 5 existing tattoo establishments within the city. Again, this is where they would be permitted today. We did a GIS analysis applying all the location criteria that I just described. And as a result, there would be 2 zones in the city where they would be permitted with a ministerial permit. One is the commercial corridor along Irvine and Bristol, and the other is an office area near Anacapa and Newport Center Drive. Looking at it a little bit closer, this is an aerial of the Anacapa and Newport location. The area I've just highlighted in green would be the area in which tattoo establishments would be permitted. I should point out that the City Council recently approved a project at the car wash site on the corner of Anacapa and Newport. That is scheduled to be developed as a residential property. When that occurs, it'll reduce this area 500 feet to the right of that location, but there will still be some viable location in this area for tattoo establishments. The second area, again, is the Bristol Irvine Commercial Corridor, highlighted in green here. Collectively, there's approximately 150 to 200 retail or office suites between these two areas in which tattoo establishments would be permitted, with one of the requirements being a 1,000-foot separation requirement, as new tattoo establishments are permitted. It would reduce the area in which they could be located. In terms of the 5 existing tattoo establishments, they would be considered legal non-conforming uses. They could continue to operate. If they wanted to intensify or expand their use, they could do so through a conditional use permit. If they cease to operate for 180 days, they would lose their legal non-conforming status. This project was reviewed by the Planning Commission. It received unanimous support, and we are recommending that the council move staff's recommendation. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Do we have any questions from council? Seeing none. All right. So any questions from the public? Open this item up for public comment.
Mayor Avery, members of the council, my name is Jim Mosier. I am no fan of tattoos, but this ordinance seems to me so restrictive. It's essentially a prohibition, which we've been told you're not allowed to do. Apparently there are 5 of these we've heard currently, none of which will be legal under this ordinance. We have 2 areas in the city where they would be allowed, but once one is established there, it will wipe out the area for anybody else. So we're allowing essentially 2 in a city where we have 5. That's not exactly being more liberal or relaxing our condition. So I am wondering, for this to be legal, or should it be challenged, don't we need to incorporate in this some mechanism for a proprietor, after those 2 are established and there's no more left, doesn't there have to be some mechanism for additional ones to seek some kind of waiver so that they can be established? Perhaps that is discretionary or not, but at least it seems like there has to be some safety valve. And then secondly, we've been talking a lot about the Coastal Commission tonight. You'll be sending a resolution to them to allow these, or change the coastal plan to allow these in certain districts, yet 0 are allowed anywhere in the coastal zone, which seems a little bit odd. So I have my doubts about whether this would withstand a challenge. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other public comment on this item? All right. So we'll close the public hearing unless there's someone else.
I feel like this is an episode of Footloose. We've got tattoos, drinking, anything else you want to put in here? Like a Baptist town. All right, I'll make a motion for the item.
I'll second it.
Mr. O'Neill? Okay. All right, let's vote.
Prior to reading the vote, I'll read the ordinance title for Ordinance 2021-27, an ordinance of the City Council, City of Newport Beach, adopting zoning code amendment CA 2020-2 to amend Title 20, Planning and Zoning of the Newport Beach Municipal Code related to tattoo establishment development standards. The motion carries unanimously, 7-0.
Thank you. Moving on to item 26, ordinance number 2021-28, a code amendment related to short-term lodging citywide and on Newport Island. And this is ready to go. Staff report.
I'll turn it over to Mr. Murillo. This is short-term lodging. So we did get Coastal Commission approval with some modifications, and we have about 3 slides that Jaime will go through. And there's a number of residents that seems like are here to speak on the item too.
Thank you.
Thank you, Simone. Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. Jaime Murillo. So this is an item to adopt or introduce an ordinance related to 2 local coastal program amendments submitted to the Coastal Commission related to short-term lodging. Just a quick background, as council knows, over the past 2 years, the City Council Ad Hoc Committee on Short-Term Lodging, as well as the council itself, has held multiple meetings regarding the subject of short-term lodging. We did adopt an ordinance in 2020, which is ordinance number 2020-15, which is really more related to providing the city more enforcement tools to better enforce the problems we're receiving with short-term lodging. And then last year, ordinance number 2020-2026. This was an ordinance to help stem the tide of the growing number of short-term lodging permits in the city. And that was to establish a maximum cap of 1,550 permits citywide and to establish a waiting list once that cap has been reached. To deal with the problem, or to address the problem associated with parties and commercial filmings and one-day rentals, the ordinance included a 3-night minimum requirement for short-term lodging. There was provisions included related to transferability, minimum age requirement of 25 years, and then providing a responsibility to the property owner for any parking violations associated with short-term renters. But the 3 items shown with an asterisk, those were pending Coastal Commission approval, and they're related to the 2 local coastal program amendments. So for properties within the coastal zone, the California Coastal Commission has authority over any land use changes. And so we adopted 2 resolutions. The first resolution dealt with citywide regulations affecting short-term lodging. And again, that established a maximum cap of 1,550 and established a waiting list and established a minimum 3-night stay. And then the City Council adopted a second resolution, which is associated with a second local coastal program amendment, and that was specific to Newport Island itself. Newport Island was also experiencing an explosion in number of permits. They went from 3 to 18 permits in 3 short years. And so this resolution established a maximum permit of 20 on the island. It also established an owner occupancy and owner management requirement. So any short-term lodging permits on the island would have to live on site and manage the units on their property. It also included a maximum of 1 rental per week. It included overnight occupancy limits of 2 persons per bedroom plus 2 additional for a maximum of 10 persons overnight. In addition, it included a maximum daytime occupancy limit that's equal to the overnight limit plus 6, and that would allow for guests or families to visit during the day. And lastly, it established minimum parking requirements. And this is just to ensure that if someone is operating a short-term rental on the island, they should have some minimum number of parking spaces available for their renters. So if they have 0 spaces available, they're not eligible for a permit. If they have 1 parking space open and available, they'd be allowed up to 5 persons of occupancy, and then if they have 2 spaces, they'd be allowed the maximum occupancy per the overnight or daytime occupancy limits. So the California Coastal Commission did review the 2 amendments under 1 hearing, and that was on October 13th. And overall, they were supportive of the amendments brought forward, with the exception of three major changes. So regarding the 3-night stay, they felt that that would result in increased costs for lower and moderate income families seeking to rent accommodations along the coast. And so they suggested that the minimum night stay be reduced to 2 nights. They also added a restriction related to larger apartments. So they're also concerned with losing rental housing opportunities within the coastal zone. And so they wanted to add a restriction that would prevent the complete conversion of an apartment complex into like a de facto hotel. And so for apartments that are 5 units or larger, they would restrict short-term rentals to no more than 20% of the total number of units. So if there's a 5-unit apartment complex, only 1 unit within that complex can be converted to short-term rentals. But just to clarify, a duplex would be exempt. So any existing short-term lodging permit holders who operate a duplex citywide, they'd still be allowed to continue doing so. On Newport Island, again, they were very supportive of the requested amendments. The only clarification they wanted to add was regarding the parking requirements. They wanted to make sure that we were adding an additional parking requirement above and beyond what was required for that unit. And so that's just a minor change. And so that concludes my report. With the introduction of this ordinance tonight and adoption on December 14th, the ordinance would go into effect on January 13th, 2022.
Thank you. All right. Do you have any council member comments? Yes.
Thank you, Jaime. The 1550, while it is the Coastal Commission's approval, because there was a waiting list, if you want to just explain the total number, whatever exists by January 13th and where we are right now.
Sure, that's a good question. So I just checked. So as of today, we currently have 1,581 existing permits issued. By January 13th, the number may increase as the city is continuing to issue permits. Once January 13th, 2022 hits and the ordinance is in effect, if adopted, then that would be the max. No additional permits would be issued. And then anyone on the waiting list would have to wait for the number of permits to drop through attrition over time before we open up that waiting list again.
Ms. Brenner?
I just wanted to highlight one point there that our council had actually approved the 3-night minimum for the entire city, but when it went to the Coastal Commission, they lowered that to a 2-night minimum because we've gotten letters from people who are opposing this because they want a 1-week minimum. And so I just wanted to point out to them that it wasn't our option to make a 1-week minimum number of stays at these short-term lodgings. So all we could get was a 2-night minimum for the entire city.
Great, thank you. No.
Possible to ask a question, sir?
No. Do we have any other council comment? All right. So now we'll go out to the public hearing, and you're welcome to come forward.
I was just a little confused. The 1550 plus the waited list, what does that mean? I was a little, because we're on the waiting list, so what does that mean? Does that mean we have a possibility of getting that, or is it 1550?
Ask a question. We'll just keep a little formality here, so just keep don't ask the staff member.
Oh.
Thank you. You're asking
That's
the
it?
council.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Mr. Murillo.
Yeah, so just to clarify, the maximum permit cap is going to be 1,550. We're currently above that. Any people that are on the waiting list will continue to remain on the waiting list. And then over time, through attrition, if people give up their permit, whatever happens, the number of permits we have issued is eventually going to drop down. And then as soon as that number goes below 1,550 and then there's more capacity, then the city will remove people off the waiting list and reissue permits until we hit that cap again.
So do you have any idea of where we'll be at, number of permits at the deadline?
I don't know.
Okay. Thank you. Any other council comment? All right.
Good evening, council. My name is Mark Marcos. I'm a longtime resident with my family on Newport Island and a community association volunteer. We've been working on this issue and explaining the challenges that our residents have faced for the last 3+ years, and I finally feel like there's light at the end of the tunnel. With Coastal Commission voting 10-1 to approve the amendment, it's very clear that they recognized, after all the evidence provided by the city staff, the uniqueness of the island, as well as all the challenges that have existed with having short-term rentals in our small, tight community. I'm encouraged by the majority vote, and I come to you tonight and ask you for your final vote on this amendment to preserve the future of this beautiful island, its residents and families. Lastly, I want to say thank you to the city staff for all your hard work and council for seeing this through to the finish line.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Irani, and I just had a question.
when there's a limit on occupants, does that meet the fire codes? Is that all admissible? I mean, is that safe to have that many people? Can you just comment on that? And how do they evacuate if there's
Jennifer.
whatever?
Jennifer. Counts.
Council.
So, I mean, I believe that the fire department we're within those codes.
Yeah, so within our citywide ordinance, we have occupancy limits based on fire codes. Within Newport Island, these additional occupancy limits based on persons per bedroom, it's actually a lot more restrictive than what the standard fire and building codes would allow.
All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and City Council. My name is Jim Miller. I live on Newport Island. I've been president of Newport Island for over 20 years. Our board of directors resolves issues with the city. We didn't have noise complaints until we started having short-term rentals. We had long-term renters who were all part of our island community. We had island Christmas celebrations, trick-or-treating, Easter egg hunts, 4th of July activities, which included children's decorated bicycle parade, which eventually evolved into our large parade with the city. You asked if our island parade could be part of the city parade, and we basically began it many years ago. With all of your help, big team effort. Renters and new owners sometimes contact me and ask how they can best fit in on Newport Island. Apparently people love to be loved and fit in and be accepted by other people, eh? Our streets are narrow with parking on one side and a single lane on the other side for two-way traffic. I advise them to allow the other car to go first and then smile and wave when they go by. That's how you fit on Newport Island. Within the last few years, however, short-term rentals have disrupted the peace and quiet of our neighborhood. We recently had 27, I don't have that many fingers over here, complaints in 1 month. We personally, along with other residents, my wife and I, have been awakened in the middle of the night, that was 2 o'clock in the morning, by partying, screaming, and fighting. I broke up the fight between a man and his wife, and they were drunk. He was drunk. It's very dangerous. I wouldn't think anybody should do that because you could be stabbed. But it was, there was screaming and fighting, and somebody had to stop them. Fortunately, and she said she was okay. Fortunately, our daughters grew up when the neighborhood was quiet. They were able to get a good night's sleep and did well in school. One became a physician, nurse practitioner, and the other one bad, she became a school teacher. That's a joke. I used to be a teacher. We are grateful to the city staff and to those city council people who work with us and the Coastal Commission for the staff are recommending and for Coastal Commission approving the amendment that regulates short-term rentals so we can once again have a peaceful residential community. And lastly, I want to thank all of you, every one of you, for the good job you're doing. I was listening to you on the TV, and I was inspired to come down, and that's why I just ran in a minute ago. Thank you all.
Thank you, Jim.
My name is Luis Hernandez. I'm 88 years old. And I'm asking you in the name of fairness to help me out. On my left, I have a tenant there that's been around for a long time, and he has the Airbnb. On my right, I have a owner there that purchased a home only a couple years ago, and he has Airbnb. I want to know that they told me all the benefits of Airbnb. I was elated because a lot of the responsibility that I have would be relieved of me. I immediately started to do all kinds of remodeling and everything to be up to the standards of an Airbnb. Well, my bubble was busted after I hear that although the person next to me that was only there for 2 years got a permit to have the Airbnb, I, who have been a landlord there and for 34 years, cannot get a permit to have an Airbnb. And I would ask of you, is that fair that I should be? And then I ask, well, if I could I get a permit? They says that the number of permit is already filled. And then the next question I ask is, well, then when will I be able to probably get a permit? They say maybe in a year or two that I be qualified. Do you think that's fair? And I have never been told since I've been down there that there is a quota that you have to fill. Is that right? And I think for all these reasons, I should be given priority to on the island where many others have gotten the permit with only being there 2 and 3 years, and me being there for 34 years, that I should qualify or at least be grandfathered in to get a permit. And I appreciate anything that any of you can do to make up for that unfairness that I feel. And I want to end on a happy note. I wish you all a Merry Christmas and a happy and a priceless healthy New Year. And I wish you can accomplish something for me.
Thank you for taking the time to come down.
And I think there might be a little confusion about the process. I'll talk to Mr. Hernandez after this item and explain exactly how it's going to work.
Next speaker, please.
I'm a few houses down from Lou. Lou's got one short-term rental on one side. He's got a short-term rental on the other side. And across the street is another short-term, two other short-term rentals. This is all at the end of the eastern end of Newport Island, where I live, where I'm just a few yards away from these houses. And we've had a constant problem with short-term rentals on the island. And it's a small place. It's compact in size. It's limited in roads, in parking spaces. It's just been miserable for most of us. Because particularly, I can't say just at my end of the island, because at other parts of the island, you've got these commercial operations going on with irresponsible management companies. And it's become such a horrible situation that we pleaded with, thank God, with Diane Dixon and with Joy Brenner, who were sensitive to our needs. They spearheaded an effort to get specialized treatment for Newport Island. And I don't like to be the one that says, okay, we're entitled to it. Well, in fact, we are because of the situation. It's really disgusting. We get neighbors letting us know, hey, there's guys sticking out the street here at this parking space. He shouldn't be there. He shouldn't be allowed to do that. The compliance officers that the city has created, they have limited capability. And the problem is that enforcement of any of the regulations that the city has put in with good intentions are very, very limited. And what it means is that the owners of the properties that live there have to be the compliance officers, and how to try and enforce limitations on what's going on. So, Lou has been there for 33 years. I've only been here for 34, I'm sorry. I've only been here for 33 years. Lou is, how old are you, 88? 88. Well, I'm 87. So, okay, here's the other side of the coin. He wants short-term rentals, and I don't. I live in a duplex. I've lived in a duplex for 33 years. We originally had tenants we used to rent to upstairs, long-term tenants, and it was a very satisfactory situation for us. It was good. We had year-round rentals. We considered, oh, okay, well, let's talk about summer rentals versus winter rentals, or, hey, when this short-term rental thing came up, gee, that might be a good way to make some money. Okay. My wife and I discussed it thoroughly. We said, we don't want to do it. We don't want the hassle for us as owners living there. And I don't think I want my neighbors to have to suffer that kind of situation. So at any rate, let me just thank Diane Dixon, Lloyd Brenner, specifically for all the efforts that they have put in and the support we've gotten for getting this across to the city, to Coastal Commission.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next speaker, please.
How you doing? My name is Mike Ivey. I want to thank the council for giving me this time. I'm in favor of short-term rentals. I have 2 properties on the island. They're both on. It's a duplex. We only rent one of them. We fit with all these guidelines. We have 4 parking spots. We actually 6, including the garage. So we fall within these guidelines. What I'm worried about is the creep in which the goal is to ban short-term rentals entirely. And that's where really this is going. And that, I think, is the ultimate goal. Because when you get to the point of owner-occupied, that's ridiculous. It's ridiculous to the point that none of you would ever rent a 3-bedroom home knowing that the owner has to occupy one of those bedrooms, would you? It's absurd. And that's a ridiculous allegation to put on top of this. So kind of think about as this goes through. And by the way, when we get to the parking part, I invite all of you to come down and sit on my patio, and we're going to watch all the residents that claim how miserable it is race through all the stop signs, race through all of the little cross section there at Marcus and 38th. They drive like a bat out of hell, and they blame it all on short-term renters. The reality is parking is a problem. But the real problem stems from the fact that all these small homes that used to have plenty of parking like mine have been torn down so they could build 4,000 square feet, put in a 2-car garage in which one of those occupies their surfboards and their bikes. They have children, they have 4 cars, and now they complain they don't have enough parking. That's the issue. The issue is the residents. It's not short-term renters. Our short-term renters, Airbnb or VBRO, come in. They come in by Uber or Lyft. It's a family. They're in 1 car. That's it. There's not tons of cars coming in. The people who are on the island have 4 and 5 cars. That's the problem. It's not short-term renters. You need to take a look at the bigger picture. And the domestic violence that we hear about, those people lived and owned a home on the island. Okay, I also live in Newport Coast. There's plenty of domestic violence problems up there. It doesn't exist only on this little island. And I appreciate, Diane and Joy, what you're doing, but it really seems kind of self-motivating for yourselves to try to speak for everyone on the island, because you don't speak for everyone on the island. We heard you on the Coastal Commission call. You don't represent everybody. You certainly don't represent me. Okay? So I really want to look forward to this whole thing. I think the goal is to overall ban short-term rentals, and I think that's where this is leading. And even though I fall within all of these guidelines, and we're fine within it, I feel that this is going in a bad direction. So I want you to take a careful look at it. One last thing. If you're going to put fines on people, equal is equal. If you're going to send me a fine for $500 for someone who's renting, you should also send a homeowner a fine for their parking illegally too. Parking in the red is parking in the red. Okay, fire truck comes through, they don't care if it's a short-term renter. They don't care if it's a resident. You're blocking a fire truck. So what's the difference? Why should I get a fine with a short-term rental and they don't? Equal is equal. Let's play the cards that way.
Thank you for your
time.
comments.
Mayor Avery and members of the council, my name is Jim Mosier. I only wanted to make sure that the council is aware of one of the nuances of the Coastal Commission's action that they took last month, which relates to the fact that when we asked for our local coastal program to be certified, the council and the staff went to great effort to try to isolate everything that needed Coastal Commission approval in one title of our municipal code, which is Title 21, the Local Coastal Program Implementation Plan. However, Jaime showed you a slide which is from a different chapter, which we thought was not part of the coastal plan, Chapter 5.95, that has the permitting requirements for the short-term lodgings. And he showed you a slide with asterisks by some conditions that we thought needed Coastal Commission approval and others that we thought did not. Well, when the Coastal Commission on October 13th agreed to certify this, they made it very clear that because our Title 21 was now referring to Chapter 5.95, they were certifying, they were now regarding that entire chapter as being part of our local coastal program. And I take that to mean that if the council wants to make any future changes to any of the conditions, not just the starred ones, and perhaps any other part of that chapter, it is now part of our, if you accept these amendments, it seemed to be a condition of that that whole chapter is now part of the local coastal program, which is not unusual. Many other cities don't actually have a separate chapter. Their local coastal program is a patchwork of different pieces of their municipal code. So they may have no objections to future amendments to that Chapter 5.95, and staff may disagree with my interpretation, but that's what I heard they were saying. And I think you should be aware of that. So future changes, I think, will have to be reviewed by them for their impact on the coastal zone and consistency with the Coastal Act. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Good evening, Mayor Avery and council members. Gary Cruz from Newport Island. I've spoken a few times on this subject, and hopefully it's the last. I'm sure we all want that. Listen, thank you, everybody that's been a part of this. I have attended the Coastal Commission meeting, and it was a breath of fresh air to hear that the Coastal Commission, as well as the City Council, listened to the majority of the residents. And I think it's been lost a little bit in that on Newport Island, we are not an R1 zone, but we're a de facto R1 zones. And most of our, 85% of the residents signed a petition that said that they want owner-occupied, owner-managed. And why owner-occupied? We don't want a ban. I shouldn't say we don't want a ban, but a ban is not reasonable. It's not going to happen, and we know that. But what we want is owner-occupied, owner-managed, because we want responsibility. We want accountability. And we weren't getting that because code enforcement is just too darn difficult. You know, it's you call the police and you register a complaint. It takes a time for them to come out, and by then it possibly isn't going on. That doesn't mean it didn't happen. So what we're looking for is some sort of accountability. Unfortunately, we have some third-party rentals that just don't manage their properties well. Some do. But how can we regulate that? How can we say, okay, you're good and you're not? But we have no other choice than owner-occupied, owner-managed, because the person is there. They're accountable to their neighbors. They have to look at their neighbor the next day, and we get results. Thank you very much. It's been a breath of fresh air. It was a breath of fresh air to see how well the city worked with Coastal, too, because that was a great thing. I had heard some stories, and that just wasn't the case. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Hello, City Council. Scott McFetters here. I just wanted to thank everybody for all the time and effort that everybody's put into this. Most of the council and most of the city staff that we worked with has been supportive of everything, and it hasn't been easy, but what's great about it is it all started with a small group. It started with educating people with what's going on, and you can't always make everybody happy, but if you can make a majority of the people happy in their neighborhoods where they live on a permanent basis, I think that's what the city council's about. I mean, it seems like lately there's a lot of things going on with city council about how things might change, but the one thing that should never change is city council is supposed to be about the residents, about the neighborhoods, and it's also supposed to be about the businesses in the city, but it's supposed to be about making this a better place for people who live here. So if that's the foundation, there's a lot of other things that can be built off that, but if we lose that foundation and we forget about the neighborhoods, we forget about where people sleep at night, where their kids live, and making Newport a better place for the residents that can then make it a better place for everybody else that visits. If we keep that intact, we've got a great city. If we get out of control and we start going doing other things and not focusing on this, on the community, on the neighborhoods, and the residents, then things might go a little nuts, and I don't know if we can get it back. So keep doing what you're doing. It's working. It worked well for us. It wasn't always working well. I think every time we came in here, we were concerned where we're going to be with votes. But I think Newport's going to be a much better place for STRs and for everybody that's dealing with the STR issue because of everybody's work and efforts here. So I want to thank everybody. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Next speaker, please. All right. Seeing none, bring it back up here to the dais. Do we have any comments from up here?
I'll make just a couple of comments. As we've heard from the residents, I mean, it really did start at the resident level, and we're here to represent the residents, and I'm delighted with the support of members of the council. We have advanced it this far. I have to say I was just really pleasantly surprised with the Coastal Commission. One interesting aspect of that discussion with Coastal was they too, as we've heard this afternoon about housing, affordable housing, they're very concerned about housing in the coastal zone. And in District 1, or the peninsula, according to the 2020 census, the population of District 1 has declined by 10%. And in Ms. Brenner's district, I think it's been about 6%. And the Coastal Commission's opinion is that it's driven by a change in residential status of permanent residency to short-term rental occupied homes. So the Coastal Commission sees the impact of short-term rentals on permanent residential homes. And also, that's point number one. Point number two, when they understood that we have currently over 1,500 short-term rental permits, when 6 or 7 years ago we had half that, maybe 900, they actually commended the city for having as many visitor serving rooms or places to stay in addition to is it 3,000 or 4,000, where's Simone, 3,000 or 4,000 hotel rooms in the city, plus the short-term rentals, plus other rental capabilities that they were very impressed. So we've had many struggles with the Coastal Commission as long as I've been on the council, and we win a few and lose a few, but I think we really impressed the Coastal Commission that we are intent on serving visitors and our residents alike and driving more permanent residency for people who need homes. So I think we're able to meet the needs imposed upon us, and I'm grateful for staff support and the residents who really drove this home. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. O'Neill.
Yeah, just a couple things. The first one is I voted against a lot of this. I voted for some of it. I voted against a lot of it. But it strikes me that when we've voted as a body to send something up to Coastal and Coastal sends it back with some modifications, it wouldn't be right to vote against it twice. So I'll be supporting it. But I will say the owner-occupied is causing hardships, and we've done really wrong by one couple on there who would have been owner-occupied but for the fact that they have a restraining order against someone else on the island and had to move off the island because it just wasn't working properly. And now they're going to lose their license, their ability to rent because of a situation like that. And we have no carve-out, no ability for them to continue to operate despite it not being their fault, and that's wrong. So we probably need to find a way to remedy that because the blanket owner-occupied requirements have really caused harm to two of our residents in a way that is unconscionable, and we need to fix that.
Ms. Brenner?
I just wanted to ask Simone, we don't enforce differently on parking violations for short-term rentals than we do for the general population, do we?
So there is a difference. So when it's short-term rental related, if the parking violation is within 100 feet of a short-term lodging unit, and we can confirm the vehicle is a tenant, then that property owner that owns that short-term lodging permit gets an actual $1,000 citation.
Oh, okay.
So that is in the code that was adopted, and that's
The first-time violation is $1,000?
to the property owner because it violates the ordinance under short-term lodging. Plus, the person who owns the vehicle gets the parking ticket. So that is currently in the code, and if the council has direction to modify that, then we can definitely move forward with something like that at another point.
Okay, and then other violations like that, we just receive the normal municipal code
Yes.
violation from the police department?
If they can't tie it to a short-term lodging unit, then it's just the vehicle gets that parking ticket.
Because this is part of the contract that they sign with the rental company when they choose to lease this property.
No, so maybe I'm confused with the question. So for our short-term lodging ordinance requires that dictates that if they get a parking ticket, the owner gets a citation.
Yes.
So if that's not related to short-term lodging, they just get a parking ticket.
But that is, according to Craig Batley, that is the kind of thing that they have in their agreement with the people who rent their properties, that they know that those sorts of penalties exist if they break the law.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Right.
All right. Thank you.
Ms. Dixon?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I just want to make a motion to approve the ordinance related to the code amendment related to short-term lodging citywide and on Newport Island.
Thank you. Mr. Duffield?
Yeah, real fast. I lived on Newport Island for a winter rental, and so I know, and this was years and years and years ago, and it was tough then, and so I know how tough it is, and it's still going to be tough. Even with what we're doing, it's still a small place. This isn't going to, solve everybody's ills about parking, no question, but it certainly makes it more palatable and livable, and that's what we have to do for keep our residential areas, good neighborhoods. Thanks.
Any other council comments? I'll just say that I've experienced living next to a household that was extremely noisy and rude. And there is nothing worse if you haven't done that, because one of the most important things that we have is the right to peacefully enjoy our homes without being disturbed, and especially in a manner that is just over the top. And I saw a lot of video of the Newport Island situation. It's kind of hair-raising, actually. And I just think first line, at least for me, and I know for us on council, we want to defend our residents against this thing. But to Mr. O'Neill's point, it's kind of a blunt instrument that's being used, and it's not good for the good operators, because and so I agree, we need to find some way to make some room for folks that they own the house, they live there, and they run a good program. And many of us have taken Airbnbs. I mean, my wife and I have done a lot, and we're quiet. It's all great, and it's just this, when it starts being taken over by organizations and businesses, and the people aren't there. And some of them could be good, but my feeling is I concur with Mr. O'Neill on his view, and I don't like to really, it is over the top. But we need to do this now, and I think, I'd be all for looking at ways to make it work for folks. So That's my comment there. Ms. Brenner?
Duffy, do you want to second Diane's motion?
Sure, thank you for that.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, let's vote.
Prior to reading the vote, I'll read the ordinance title for Ordinance 2021-28, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Newport Beach, amending Chapter 5.95, Short-Term Lodging Permit, and Title 21, Local Coastal Program Implementation Plan of the Newport Beach Municipal Code related to short-term lodging, and adopting Local Coastal Program Amendment LC 2020-7 related to short-term lodging, and Local Coastal Program Amendment LC 2020-8 related to short-term lodging on Newport Island. The motion carries 5-2 with Councilmember Blom and Mayor Pro Tem Muldoon voting no.
All right. Okay, current business, item 27, appointment to fill the unscheduled vacancy on the Civil Service Board. Do we have any public comments regarding this item? Seeing none. Seeing no public comments on this item, the city clerk will collect the ballots.
Oh, is it in here? Okay, thank you.
I voted twice.
The applicants must receive at least 4 votes in order to be appointed. Councilmember Duffield votes for Brian Moore. Councilmember Blom, Brian Moore. Councilmember Dixon, Brian Moore. Councilmember Brenner, Brian Moore. Councilmember O'Neill, Brian Moore. Mayor Pro Tem Muldoon, Brian Moore. And Mayor Avery, Brian Moore. Brian Moore is appointed 7-0.
All right. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is motion for reconsideration. Madam Clerk.
A motion to reconsider the vote on any action taken by the City Council, either this meeting or the previous meeting, may be made only by one of the council members who voted with the prevailing side.
Great. Seeing no motions, we are adjourned.